Good evening, my beautiful people. It is Friday, April the 1st. I don't want to say happy April Fool's Day, but it is Friday, April the 1st. This is Cultivating Conversations, and I am your host, Stacy T. Cultivating Conversations is a platform and a podcast where we have thought provoking conversations about life, love, the pursuit of happiness, and everything in between. So if you are catching me for the first time, welcome. And if you are back, hey, how you doing? We made it through another week. And yeah, so it's April Fools and I am here to talk about something that I'm pretty sure we all wished was a prank. And I know that by now it may be tiring, it may be exhausting. And I know that there's some people, they have their thought process about, like, oh, we don't need to be talking about it. But I think it's good conversation. I think it's good conversation on a lot of levels. Yes, there are more important things that we can be talking about, but this is important. And it is important to a lot of people. And it is important to me. It's not something that, I'm going to harp on. I'm not talking about this in the next episode, but I think that anytime we see something dealing with um us, number one, our mental health, and just real life situations and scenarios, it's worth talking to. um I'm not expecting a whole bunch of agreements. I'm not looking for that. I don't care. My whole thing is, if I can just help one person, then all of this um has been worth it. What do you mean help one person? Like, you're not here to help Will Smith. No, I'm not. But there are Will Smiths in the world. There have been a lot of Will Smiths from preschool to middle school to being an adult. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about not necessarily the incident. Okay. Let me just hit it and quit it. And let me give my disclaimer, because from one thing that I've seen just from conversation is that people get stuck in one place, and sometimes we have selective hearing where we just get stuck somewhere and that's it. And if anybody knows me, you know that I don't like to deal with surface, because nearly everything that happens, every situation, whether it's public or private, wherever, there's always a paper trail. There's always a root. And if you know me, you know that I'm always going to dig deeper, and I'm going to dig into the root. Because if we just looked at things for the surface, in the surface, for the surface, at the surface, we're going to miss so many things that will, one, give context to whatever is happening, and two, can be such learnings. I am a person where, what can we learn from this? And that's going to be my final question at the end of the day. Because if you're not learning from anything, then what's the purpose of having all of this conversation other than to hear yourself talk and want to be right in your own eyes? So let me just start off by saying, well, I kind of started already, but let me just continue and just put this disclaimer right here. I do not condone violence of any sort. Um, I don't condone violence. What I saw on Sunday, I could only watch probably twice because it's been floating around. It was cringeworthy. I actually cringed. My stomach churned when I saw what I saw. And I was so hurt for him behind it. Um, yeah, so I don't condone violence at all. And I am not riding on the who was right. It's not about who was right at this point. It is about pain. And I put that in one of my statuses. That's all I saw. That's all I saw was pain. So let's walk the paper trail of how we got to March the 28th. Let's walk the paper trail of how we got to March 28th, right? 2 years ago, we're in a pandemic. We got bodies and rumors of deaths and people just dying everywhere. Nobody can work. Everybody is shut up in the house. There's all of this stuff that's already mentally taxing on the entire earth. Unless you were already in the grave, COVID affected you at some degree. Like I've always said that, COVID, I was fine. And in the grand scheme of things, I was fine. But even I, looking at these meat trucks and all of these things, it was a lot. It was a lot. And then we get this word about, Jada Pinkett having an affair with August Asina, whatever his name is. Now, the thing is that, and I've talked about this before on my podcast, or maybe have I? I don't know if I have, but I think I've made a comment about the fact that men and women handle cheating differently. Okay. I'm not going into rumors because I don't know for sure about their marriage and all of that. At that particular point, there was something that took place that wasn't agreed upon between the husband and the wife. Because I'm not here for but at that point, there was something that wasn't agreed upon. And it became, entanglement took on a whole different context. Like it became a beast in and of itself. And you have this man, this Black man who is in the middle of this tryst, if you will, the middle of this thing, and his manhood is being questioned, and everyone is giving their opinion, as they're doing now, about what they would have done and what kind of man is he. So as a man, women, we handle it all day. It's just the double standard. You get cheated on and, whatever. But you also see the other side of that, where the person that is cheated on becomes the one that people pounce on. Well, what did you do? What didn't you do? And this and the third, and so on and so forth. There were so many things that went on with this man for a long, 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 long time. And unless you've had your dirty laundry aired out for public consumption, you won't understand. You won't understand. But if you have been in a place where something that was traumatic and detrimental to you became public knowledge and became a meme and became the butt of all jokes from so many people, and every time you turned around, somebody was talking about you and somebody was saying this, and you can't go anywhere with somebody mentioning it and asking you questions. You can't turn on the TV. You can't, let's bring it home. You can't go to school. You can't go to work without them whispering around the water cooler. You can't go to church without there being people looking at you and side-eyeing you from the pulpit and laughing at you and walking past you and sneering and whatever. Or your children coming home and telling you that they heard things about you, or your children being attacked. Unless you have lived in a space where you had to live through embarrassment, you wouldn't understand this part, right? And so we lived through that. He lives through that. And I'm not exonerating anybody in his family. I'm not even touching the whole thing about his wife and all of that. I'm talking about him and him alone, and the things surrounding and how we got here, because we can talk about his wife and that, but if you shared a meme, if you've laughed, if you've had conversation, if you have commentary, if you have used your platform to drive the knife in, you are and it's no more different than if there's a rumor about somebody. I hear something about somebody and I'm talking about them to somebody, it's no difference. So this man had to live through all of this. And then he's trying to redeem himself at some point. He writes a book. He's trying to do inspirational things on social media, and he's trying to pick up the pieces of his brokenness, where you ever seen like a piece of glass and it's shattered, and then as you walk on it, that piece is broken, but it gets broken even more with every step. This was his life. And who were the feet or whatever that was helping the brokenness become shattered all the more? Us. And I say us generally, if you don't fit into that, because I don't fit into that, then I'm talking about generally as people, as a society. We continue. He writes a book. He does King Richard. He gets to the pinnacle of his career. The pinnacle of his career. I think he won a SAG award. Jada is, she has a thing going on with her hair, and she did that, as embracing where she is and being a light to other women, because losing your hair is a big thing. But enough of her. He's trying to, I won't even say redeem himself, but he's trying to pick himself back up. And the one night that we could have just laid the daggers down, turned away, and found some other content or some real comedy, because I don't believe shaming somebody at their expense is comedy. I don't think that is funny. Instead of us doing that, we keep poking and 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 we keep poking. The one night that we could have just let him have his moment for not only what we've all been through, but what he especially has been through, because he has been pounced. We throw daggers. We throw daggers. We don't even let him come up for air and enjoy this moment. Because if you have, again, ever been in a place where somebody said something to you and you had to smile and giggle and take a breath, we do it in corporate America all the time. Somebody says something and it's like, but in the back of your mind, you're like, crushed. This is what we saw with the first joke by one of us. It's all of these people in the room. It didn't have to be them, but it was, because we find humor in other people's pain in the name of comedy. And I don't get that. So one joke goes. And if you see when Regina Hall made the joke, Jada Pinkett did one of those, like, that's a good one. But Will was like, I'm not coming up there. I'm not coming up there. What do you do when the whole world is looking at you and expecting and waiting for a response, and you have to put on this mask that we tell people so many times to take off? But how can you take off a mask when you have to wear it? Because what is under it is going to unleash everything that I'm trying to hide, that I'm trying to suppress, that I'm trying to work through. But you keep poking and 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 you keep poking. So now, by this next joke, he's had it. He's had it. And I prayed it was a prank until he got back to his seat and I saw his eyes. Now, let me put another disclaimer. I am not a clinician. You have not heard me diagnose anything. Pain is not a diagnosis. Pain is a natural human feeling. And again, I say, unless you have been through the pain, of having to suppress and be thought to suppress, just keep taking the punches and don't say anything. How many people was told that, but they let it out another way and they're no longer here? Unless you've been there when you were on the cusp or you actually reacted, you're not going to understand this. And that is when I put my hands up and I won't speak to anyone who is not even willing to have empathy to understand what that feels like. He reacted in the absolute worst way. The absolute worst way. But would it have been better if he had left there and got into his hotel room and was found the next morning? I know this may be a far reach to people who have not been through things where you feel like you are suffocating, not so much at your own, but because of other people, and they won't stop. They won't stop. They can stop, but they won't stop. Because one of the first things that he said when he got up there with tears streaming down his face was, they expect you to act like everything is okay. And you can go to therapy and you can go to therapy, but a drug addict is not going to put himself in a crack house willingly, because he understands that there are triggers and there are things that can bring him to a certain place. But what happens when your trigger is the entire world? This is why, one of the reasons why people check out. And no, I'm not talking from a clinical standpoint, but yes, I am talking from a person that wanted to check out at one time, and no one will ever be able to take that moment and that feeling away from me, because it is very, very real. And that is what hurt me, because when I saw Will up there nearly shaking, I saw myself. Therapy and all, I saw myself. Because unless you have on a bulletproof vest from the darts that continue, you would literally have to walk away. You would have to have a therapist on call, on standby. That's what he would need to deal with the amount of pressure from people that just found his life and the things that he was going through personally as comedic content. So my question is, beloveds, how do we tell children that bullying is wrong? How do we tell children that they should be nice and not tease each other, but reconcile that it is okay when adults do it? How can we talk to children and talk about suicide prevention awareness to middle schoolers and high schoolers and elementary, and tell them about being kind, but we don't do it as adults when we should know better? People say that Will Smith should have known better to do something like that. Should we have not known better than to laugh at somebody's pain? The thing that I hate the most about this is that the expectation would have been for him to just continue to smile while everybody continued to laugh. because that's what we're accustomed to. And because he reacted in the worst way, and the majority of the world does not have the mental bandwidth or the simple compassion, humanistic compassion, to see an inkling of what is going on, to at least put themselves in his shoes, because you wouldn't be able to handle the pressure. And the thing is this, you don't have to be in Hollywood to undergo that type of pressure. All you have to do is be a person of influence. All you have to do is be somebody that is called to the masses, or called to make a difference. Because this is what the enemy wants. He always wants to make the victim into a villain. And this is what we have right now. Will Smith, who was never seen as the victim, but just as a joke, has now become the villain. And the victim has been not even a thought now. And he is being blamed by something that, dare I say, we created. We created. We kept on poking. We kept on poking. We kept on poking. And I think there's an old saying that says, there's only but so many times you can poke a bear before it attacks. There's only but so much a person can take. Only but so much. And if you have never been there, if you have never been bullied at any capacity, if you have never just had continual opposition from people who just make it their life's goal to make you the butt of their lack of ownership for their own life, to make you the center of their life because they don't have one, to make you the pinnacle of their context or their content, their comedic content, because it takes more thought to think of something that will be hilarious and harmless rather than harmful to somebody's expense. Unless you have dealt with that, then of course your stake in the ground is going to be that he was wrong and that's it. If you have sat from a place where you everyone just loved you, and you've never had a struggling moment in your life, if you were the one on the side of bullying and have never been bullied, you won't understand this. So, beloveds, here's the thing. What do we learn from this? Because this is not something that happened behind closed doors and was rumored. We all watched this with our own eyes. So why did God allow us to see this? And I know that for a lot of people, it's hard to take lessons from these things, because if I don't deal with my own stuff, I'm not going to be able to hold the mirror up to a situation and see myself and how I can do better and be better. I'm not going to be able to see it, because it is so much easier to point and find fault with everyone else and not deal with our own stuff. But nonetheless, if there's just one, what is it that we can learn from this? Is it be kind? Is it being careful with the people that are in our sphere of influence, the people that we come across, just the people that we pass, to just be kind, especially coming out of a pandemic where people have obviously forgotten how on edge and how much this whole pandemic took a toll on us mentally, to just be kind? Or is the lesson to not take somebody else's pain and use it for your own self-grandizement, to use it to pull yourself up because misery loves company. So we don't want to be in the company of misery. Is it when your friend or your loved one is going through things or has had a continual bout with things, or if you don't even know what they're going through, to just be nice, to just be gentle with one another? Is it learning the difference between listening to respond and give somebody your advice or just listening? Is it reading the room or reading the person and seeing how sensitive they are in what they're sharing with you so that you know how to gauge and respond? Because here is the other thing. Thank you, Lord, for the reminder. Denzel and Tyler Perry, they all could have sat back in their seats during the intermission and been like, now, you know he played himself, so I ain't even going over there, like many of us would have done, because the commentary from people is like, I, I wouldn't want to be in a bind. I wouldn't want to slip up and make a mistake, and you be my friend, and you would not be the person I would talk to at all. But you have a Denzel and a Tyler who, at some point between that, because it wasn't a long time between when that incident happened and when the that category came up. It wasn't a lot of time, because all I kept thinking was, what is he going to do if he wins? Like, what do you say after you've done that? What do you say? What do you get up and say? And my stomach churns for him. So it wasn't a lot of time. And immediately they went to him. And just from the looks of the exchange, from the pictures that were taken, they showed compassion. They showed empathy. Not condoning what he did, but understanding that he was in a very delicate, sensitive place. If you don't hear anything else I said in this episode, please make sure that you have at least one Denzel or Tyler Perry. It could literally be a matter of life and death. Literally. And I mean literally, okay? When I was going through what I was going through, when I was going through it, there was one person that really, really stuck close to me. I mean, she stuck close to me. And she didn't say much, but she watched how I moved. She watched my temperature. She watched how I was feeling that particular day, and she moved with that for a long time. This wasn't a week, for a long time. And I'm indebted to her because she was gentle with me. It wasn't the place to tell me how she felt. It wasn't the place to tell me what she already thought, because I knew. It wasn't the place for her to give me her commentary on what she thought about my life. It was about her being gentle and tending to my wounds and not pouring salt on them. And you know what? She never did. She never waited until I was in a good place and was like, girl, because I wanted to ask you. And I've had people that have done that. Still not knowing. And thank God the Lord did what he did for me. But what if not what if he hadn't, but what if I hadn't allowed him to? What if I was still, because there are still people that things have happened to them years ago and they're still there and they're still living in it and they're bitter and they're nasty and they're angry and they're still spewing hate, not judging. It's where they are. It's where I could have been. And it may have been where I would have been if I had people continually poking and poking and poking. But I disappeared. I disappeared because I knew the pain, and I knew what I was capable of. And I knew that I didn't know all of what I was capable of, but given the right circumstances and the right comment, I would have blown where I'm at now. I would not be where I'm at now talking to you about this if I had not used restraint in quite a few scenarios that hit my doorstep. And the restraint that I used, if I did not have an outlet, it would have made me sick. It would have drove me to my grave. I assure you. I assure you. I assure you. And that is why when I watched Will Smith, I was a little triggered. And the comments after, I was a little triggered because one of the worst things in the world is to be misunderstood. And right now, he's being misunderstood because all we see is what we see because of our limited knowledge and our ill information and our lack of experience. And I'm glad that everybody doesn't have the experience that some of us have to have been in that place. But it doesn't mean that you can't show just a little bit of compassion and empathy. Again, not condoning what he did. It was wrong. It was violent. It was shocking. It may have very well also been traumatic to somebody who has dealt with domestic violence. I mean, or violence in and of itself. Like it could have been a PTSD trigger for some. It so many things, so many variables. So I'm not condoning it. But what I'm saying is that at some point with every situation, if we could just be courageous enough to stand back and say, what part did I play? What can I do to make sure that I don't be the cause of this type of behavior being exemplified in somebody else because of my antics and my stupidity and my ignorance and my foolishness and my insatiable desire to spread rumors and lies and be ill-informed and not get all of the information and joke and play around to the point of bullying and emasculating or just tearing down somebody's livelihood and character. And then they end up doing something like that or worse. Or worse. And this is why I'm so passionate about something like this, because I almost didn't make it. And there are people who didn't make it. And there are people right now that are laying in their grave because of something that somebody or people said to drive them to the edge. Yet, we tell children to be nice and not to make fun of each other because it's bullying, because it's bad. But yet we accept it in the name of comedy. And it doesn't mean that it waters down what comedy means. It just means when do we go from knock knock who's there to completely tearing down a whole person's persona? I mean, dragging them and laughing about it. And the thing that I hate the most is that we can't see that there were two things that happened. There were two different types of 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 um of negative things that happened. It was with the mouth, by the joke telling, and it was by the hands, by violence. And we've talked about mental and emotional abuse and how the whole notion of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We've already said that that was a lie. So how do we pick and choose what happens or what we feel or what is right or what is wrong because of a situation? We got to look at all of the variables and then come to the conclusion. And the conclusion is not only that he was wrong. There's a lot of conclusions. There's a lot of conclusions, and I won't go into his wife in those because I don't have all of the information, and that's a whole nother thing. Like, if I don't know the whole story, I'm gonna shut my whole mouth. I'm talking about what I saw and how it made me feel and how it impacted me and the residual effects of when somebody is completely and continually torn down and how it affects them. So I won't get into the wife and the thing. All I know is that a Black man has been dragged and has been emasculated by more than one person, has been joked and talked about, but yet we talk about protecting our Black men. His mother even says she's never seen something like that. So how do we protect him? How do we talk about protect our Black men, but we laugh at the fact that his wife cheated on him and we make jokes about it? How is that protecting when we stand on a stage in front of the whole world and poke fun at somebody on the greatest night of their life twice? And it's very easy to say, and I said in a post, it's very easy to say that what I would have done and what I wouldn't have done, and he could have, and he could have. And hindsight is always 2020. And like I said, when you're in a sober state of mind and all is well in your world, or you at best are not dealing with things like that, it's so easy. It's so easy to say, well, how could they? Well, I don't understand. And I've seen it where people will have all of this commentary and then life comes at you fast. It knocks the wind out of you. And now you have to take a piece of humble pie. We got to be careful. We got to be careful at how we handle people, whether afar or up close. But especially up close, we got to be careful about how we handle people. Got to be careful. So I hope that after all of the opinions and all of the commentary and all of the debating and disputing and arguing and all of those things, I hope that after coming out of this pandemic, that we have grown to have heart, have compassion, handle people the way they deserve to be handled, not based on how we feel, but based on the attributes of God and the Bible that we oftentimes say that we believe in, but kind of fall short. And look, we fall short. But I think the important thing is to walk away from this very, very bad situation and walk away with some life lessons for ourselves. Because, like I said in my last post on IG, you never know when you may find yourself in the need for some grace. And it may not come like that, but life has a way of hitting us the way it could affect us, the way it affected him. You just never know. You just never know. So let's have compassion. Let's really think more and talk less. That's why we have two ears and one mouth. And let's not be so hell bent on being right that we can't humble ourselves to say, I'm wrong. And I understand. Because I feel that his apology is that video was shared, I don't know how many times, but the apology, not so much. Anyway, regardless of what is happening, there are a lot of other things that are happening in the world. And truth be told, there's a lot of things that are happening in our home. So I would hope that we have just as much energy and to think about the things that we need to handle in our own sphere, check on our friends, make sure they're okay, make sure no one is at their breaking point, making sure that we are not helping to break somebody else down. Because it's like I said, it's one thing to be able to be a recovering drug addict and not have to put yourself back in that situation. Some people, you can't leave the earth unless you choose to, because you don't want to deal with the people. And the notion that it can't hurt unless, no, no. Everyone has their breaking point. Everyone has their breaking point because we're human. Everyone has their breaking point. So, in conclusion, let's be kind. Let's make sure that we have at least one Denzel and one Tyler Perry, someone that is going to be there with you at your absolute worst moment and not abandon you, not get in a group text and talk about you, not have girls' trips and dinner parties and Sunday dinners and be in the back of events and places and church and at school and at work behind the water around the water cooler talking about your pain. Let's do better. And let's be better as a society. That's all. That's all. It's always, what are we going to do now? So now this has happened. What are we going to do now? So that's my 2 cents on it. I hope you enjoyed this. Whether you agree or not, I hope you enjoy it. And it's fine. Like my bishop said, opinions are like noses on people's faces. Everyone has one. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful. And it's not from a place, and I've said this again in my post. It doesn't make me better because I used restraint, but it made me more compassionate, because there's something that was in his eyes that was completely unsettling to me. And I just wish more of us had the heart and the mental bandwidth to see that. But again, that comes with a lot of experience. Again, I will say my disclaimer, I'm not diagnosing. I'm not speaking from a clinical standpoint. And may I add, let me just add this caveat. And I've said this before. I have been in therapy twice. Okay. Aside from the Denzel and the Tyler Perry and whatever leader you have in your life that you can talk to, there are some things that you have to get professional counseling. I'm not um coming against good friends, people that give good advice. I'm not coming against coaches. I'm not even coming against myself, because listen, I have some credential to counsel, but I have zero problem with saying that right there. Let me give you the number of a therapist, because I know I don't have the credentials for a lot of things. Okay, so while you have, because 9 times out of 10, the people that are around you can get to quicker than your therapist. So I'm saying that when the rubber hits the road and life comes at you fast, right then and there, you got to have somebody that will be there, not to pounce on you with their opinion and what you should do. And so you need to have somebody that is going to tend to your wounds and not pour salt in them. I cannot stress that enough. But after that, you should, for the sake of your mental health, find somebody who can professionally unpack all of what's happening with you. Because I will tell you, the therapy that I did receive helped me to not become a Will Smith. The therapy that I received after the fact, especially when my mother died and all that I was dealing with in that window, helps me to stay alive. The sum total of everything that I had dealt with the last 3 years, my therapist, the fact that I went to therapy, grounded me and centered me in a way where people still don't understand how I was able to survive the things that I survived and still smile and still live life and be authentic about it. Be authentic about it. It was because of Jesus and my therapist. It works. So know that you don't have to walk around with all of that stuff and become unhinged. Because here's the thing, the triggers don't go away as long as what the situation. We're talking about people. When things happen and the triggers don't go away. But therapy helps you and gives you tactics to deal with them. It gives you things that will, when the therapist is not there, where you can have certain practices. I, as a leader, as a minister, can't necessarily give you that because I haven't been trained to where I have a master's, a doctorate, or whatever in clinical psychology or all of counseling and all of those things. I can't give you that. The average person can't give you that. A coach can't give you that. Go into somebody that is professional to help you, and there's no harm in that. There's no stigma in that. It does not mean that you're crazy. Going through depression, and I'm going to say this, okay? Because this is part of the reason I'm going to say this, and then this is part of the reason why I think that, especially in the Black community, that we're getting better now, but there's been such a stigma around counseling. Because when you think about counseling, you think about the crazy house and people in a straitjacket and padded rooms. That's all I saw growing up. Like anything that dealt with counseling in a movie or whatever, somebody was crazy. Somebody was crazy and they having a straitjacket. I don't need a straitjacket. I don't want to be, defined by that, because that looks like it's the automatic go-to. When we talk about depression, we talk about mental health. And depression is not always a mental breakdown where there's chemical reactions and things, and then you need shots and injections and pills and stuff. It can be the sum total of life, and of life, just life. It's too much going on in my life, and I'm trying to keep up. There's nothing mental about that outside of life. Because anybody having things done to them negatively over and over and over and over again is going to impact you. I don't care who you are. But it doesn't mean that you're crazy. It means that some people, may have they got that going on. But there are a lot of people that it just means that you need somebody to help you unpack all of the things that has been up here and in here that you couldn't get out. And if you are one of those who are going through that now, where you feel like, whether it's family, whether it's so-called friends, whether it's people, and you're like, I don't know how much more I can take before I snap. Listen to me, okay? Your life is worth living. I understand, but you don't have to snap. You don't have to be the victim turned villain. You can get the help that you need, and there's somebody that you can talk to. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart, and I've said it before. If you don't have anybody to talk to, please DM me. DM me, inbox me, Facebook. You can't do it on YouTube. Facebook, Instagram. If you have my number, www.imstaceyt.com. Reach out to me, because one thing that I don't do is that I don't play with people's emotions. I don't play with their information. I don't play with their business, because I know what it feels like to have my hurt and my pain be tossed out for human consumption because I talked to a person that could not be trusted, or something got in the hands of the wrong person, and instead of them coming to me, they picked up my wounds. I know what that feels like. And when you've gone through that, you don't want to talk to anybody. And all of that stuff stays bottled up inside, and it gets hot, and it gets hot until you boil over and you explode, and now you're the wrong one. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for you. So if you need to, whenever you need to, you inbox me, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pray for you, and then I'm going to give you the number to somebody who is qualified to help you, because there is help out there. There is love out there. You are not alone. You're not alone. And I mean this. I mean this. And those who are really, really close to me know I mean this. You're not alone. You're not on an island by yourself. It may feel like the walls are closing in, but it's a trick. It may feel like everybody is coming against you, and it may be a good majority of you, but there are people who do love you. There are people who do love you. And if you don't feel like you have a Denzel or a Tyler to come to you and help you, not condone your behavior, not 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 stroke, you in your mess or whatever, but in love can tend to your wounds. Watch this. Even when you're wrong. Even when you're wrong. Especially when you're wrong, because that's when people need it the most. That's when people need it the most. If you don't feel you have that, please DM me. I don't want you blowing up. I don't want you to pile on and compound everything and then get to a place where you just explode. I don't want you to leave this earth and not fulfill everything that you have been called to do before your time. And I don't want you to miss out on the opportunity to be able to tell somebody that because I made it, you can too. Because I'm going to tell you, on the other side of all the pain, on the other side of all of the ridicule and the chatter and the laughter and the continual pouncing and the mocking and the scoffing and the word curses and all of those ugly, nasty things, there is a life waiting for you that is going to give you so much strength that you're going to look back at all that you've endured and be in awe that the fact that you made it, and it's going to give you the fuel to be able to pull others through. That's where I am now. And though I would have rather to have not gone through the things that I've gone through, I know everything that I went through had to happen. And everything, as much as you can't see it, everything that you've gone through, it had to happen. It didn't happen to break you. It didn't happen to kill you. It didn't happen to destroy you. It happened to build you. But you gotta sometimes take the bricks and start the foundation yourself, and God will handle the rest. Trust me and believe when I say, yeah. So, beloveds, I know I kind of went a lot of places, but I ended where I wanted to end, and I know I ended where God wanted me to end, because I don't care about people's opinions. I just care about the hearts of those who are hurting. So, happy April. Hopefully spring act right and start springing. I don't know what's happening next week, but I hope to God that it ain't another situation, as my bishop would say, a situation, because we we just want to live and have fun and all of that good stuff. So, until next week, and I mean this, drink your water, mind your business. Mind your business. Check on your strong friends, and let's be kind and gentle to one another, and find it in our heart someplace to learn what compassion is, and take a piece of it and put it in our back pocket, because there's this thing called grace, and the more that it is extended is the more that you will receive. And we all need grace, and you don't know when you're going to need a hefty dose. So it pays to be kind to one another. I am Stacy T, and I am signing off. I love you all. I promise you I do.